One moment I was in a dive bar in Austin, Texas, called Rusty Spurs, holding a glass of cheap bourbon watered down to death and listening to country music on the jukebox. The next moment I was like a rag doll kicked into a washing machine, spinning and then crashing hard onto a patch of damp, moldy earth, rubbing my temples that felt like they were about to split open. I hauled myself up off the ground. This was definitely not Texas, and it sure as hell wasn't a bar alley. A biting wind blew through the gaps in the rotten wooden planks around me, making me shiver uncontrollably. I looked around. It appeared to be a dilapidated little cabin of maybe 20 square meters, its thatched roof looking like the sparse hair of some balding old man, ready to be blown away at any moment. Before I could figure out which bastard had played such a cruel joke on me, a cold, mechanical synthesized voice detonated directly in my mind. Welcome to Lordship Era. Global survival game. All humans on Earth aged between 18 and 50 have been transported to this starting continent called Italia. Each of you will receive an initial domain, the small wooden cabin you are currently in, and 2 randomly assigned peasants as starting resources. Here, there is no law, no morality, only the most primitive law of the jungle. In this world filled with mutated beasts, alien races, and monsters, surviving is your only goal. After a 7-day newbie protection period ends, the first wave of the global monster onslaught will arrive. Good luck, rookies. After the voice disappeared, a translucent panel emitting a faint blue glow abruptly popped up in front of my eyes. My name was displayed prominently. Rex Callahan. Profession: Trainee Lord. Level 1. Domain Prosperity 10. Damn it. I cursed under my breath and squeezed my thigh hard. It hurt. This wasn't some ridiculous hangover dream, and I wasn't starring in a low-budget Hollywood sci-fi. This was brutal reality. I'd been thrown into a damn survival game. I took a deep breath and forced myself to calm down. As a former Marine veteran, the first lesson I'd learned was, don't run around like a headless chicken before you understand the situation. If the system said there were 2 starting peasants, then where were my people? I turned around and only then noticed, in the darkest corner of the cabin, 2 trembling black shapes curled up. Hey, you 2. Stand up so I can see you. I tried to make my voice sound steady and intimidating. The 2 dark figures trembled and slowly stood up. By the faint moonlight leaking through the crack, I could finally make out my initial resources. The one on the left was a tall but clearly malnourished burly man, wearing coarse linen clothes and clutching a rust-stained pitchfork. The way he looked at me was like a prairie dog ready to bolt at any moment. Officer. No, my lord, the burly man stammered, his voice shaking like a leaf in the wind. I'm Blake Vargas. At your service. The one on the right was a scrawny girl with a mess of short brown hair, clutching a broken sickle whose blade was all warped. She bit her lip hard, her eyes rimmed in red. Harper Claremont, my lord. The girl's voice was as thin as a mosquito. I sighed, my gaze sweeping over the translucent data panel that had appeared above their heads. Name: Black Vargas. Class: Rank 1 Farmer. Attack: 2 Defense, 1 Skill, none. Name: Harper Claremont. Profession: First Level Farmer. Attack: 1 Defense, 1 Skill, none. Good heavens. These stats are downright pitiful. Attack 1 and 2. That means if they ran into a common Texas rattlesnake they'd have to fight for their lives, let alone face those mutated beasts the system mentioned. This is my start. A rickety shack and 2 cowardly weakling farmers. Knock, knock, knock. Just as I was mourning my miserable opening, the shack's tottering broken door suddenly took a series of violent hits. The whole cabin trembled, and dust rattled down from the roof. What's going on? Didn't they say there's a 7-day newbie protection period? I cried in shock, rushing to the door and peering out through the gap between the planks. Outside, in the pallid moonlight, I saw a creature the size of a full-grown bull. It was a 2-headed mutated wolf, its fur standing on end like steel needles. The 2 blood-filled maws constantly dripping a green mucus that gave off a pungent, foul stench. Where the slime hit the wooden door it immediately hissed as it corroded. Warning: Territory encountered a roaming black iron rank wild monster. Attacked by 2-headed acid wolf. Newbie protection shield is undergoing high-intensity corrosion and is expected to break in 1 minute. Lord, prepare for combat. The system's red alert flashed wildly before my eyes. 1 minute. Are you kidding me? I turned to look at Blake and Harper in the corner. Blake was so terrified he had collapsed onto the floor, his pitchfork fallen to the side. Harper was clamping her hands over her ears, letting out a despairing whimper. Expecting these 2 farmers, whose attack power is only in the single digits, to deal with the clearly dangerous monster outside was like sending sheep into a tiger's den. The wooden door gave a teeth-grating creak as a huge crack appeared. In that instant, I could even feel the scalding breath of the acid wolf striking my face. Could my survival game experience really come to an end less than 10 minutes after the start? At that critical, life-or-death moment, a dazzling golden light suddenly exploded from the depths of my mind. The radiance was so intense it even outshone the system's original pale blue glow. Ding! Detected. The host faces mortal peril. The primal power deep within the soul has fully awakened. Congratulations to Lord Rex Callahan for successfully awakening the server's sole exclusive SS Steer talent Infinite Evolution. Infinite Evolution. I was stunned for a moment. Then focused my attention on the newly appeared talent panel. SSS rank talent. Infinite Evolution description. As the only wielder of truth on this continent, you can spend evolution points to forcibly evolve any of your units, buildings, or even items, ignoring all conventional rules. Break species limits. Cross-class barriers. Everything is possible. Current evolution points. 100 points. New player starter gift. My heart began pounding wildly, blood rushing through my veins like boiling lava. To hell with being cornered. With this talent. The situation flipped in an instant. Lo, Lord, the gate is about to be broken. We're going to die here. Blake shouted in despair. Die. On my land. No one dies without my permission. I spun around sharply and strode over to the trembling Harper. Harper. Listen. I grabbed her frail shoulders, stared into her terror-filled eyes, and curled my mouth into a confident, fanatic American smile. Do you want to become the deadliest shooter in the world? Outside, the two-headed acid wolf let out a deafening roar. Its massive claws had already pierced the wooden door, and I, without hesitation, pressed the button glowing with golden light on my retina. Evolution target. First stage peasant Harper Claremont. Evolution points consumed. 100 points. Confirm evolution. Boom. The moment I pressed the confirm key, a pillar of golden light like a supernova explosion shot up through the narrow, dilapidated wooden shack, nearly blinding me. I instinctively raised my arm to shield my face and squinted through my fingers. The special effects were more stunning than a Hollywood Marvel blockbuster costing $100 million. Harper's slight body was lifted into the air by the golden light. Her screams of fear gradually turned into a hollow, sacred hum in the radiance. A miracle was occurring. Her malnourished, straw-like brown short hair grew at a visibly frantic rate, transforming into a waterfall of smooth silver locks. The rough, sallow skin faded away, replaced by skin as delicate and pale as fine porcelain. The once ordinary ears lengthened and sharpened, revealing some ancient and noble lineage. The coarse hemp robe she was wearing, reeking of sourness, turned to ash in the golden light, replaced by a form-fitting, exquisitely crafted light leather armor in emerald green that perfectly outlined her suddenly taller, curvaceous, and strikingly sexy figure. In her left hand, a magnificent longbow almost as tall as she was, its limbs shimmering with a faint cyan magical glow peered out of thin air. As the golden light gradually faded, Harper lightly descended back to the ground without raising a speck of dust. Good heavens! How was this the same timid village girl who couldn't even steady a serrated sickle a moment ago? This was straight out of a fantasy epic, The Elven Queen, so beautiful she made one forget to breathe. I swallowed and immediately pulled up her brand new system interface. Name: Harper Claremont. Race: Sylvan Elf. Rank: 3rd rank. Gold. Enter. Potential attack: 350 defense, 100 loyalty. Fanatical as the creator who gave her new life, she is willing to offer you her soul skills. Wind arrow condenses wind elemental energy into a magic arrow with powerful tearing effect. Eagle Eye precisely locks onto all moving targets within 2,000 meters, with added night vision. 350 points of attack. I nearly whistled with excitement. From a pitiful single digit of attack, it had skyrocketed by 350 times. This wasn't just breaking through rank barriers, it was like sitting on a rocket and blasting out of the atmosphere. Boom! Just as I was basking in my nouveau riche-like euphoria, the already precarious wooden door finally gave out completely, shredding into a whirl of flying wood chips. The two-headed acid wolf, its body the size of an adult bull and reeking of something like a week-old spoiled burrito mixed with skunk spray, thundered into the wooden hut. Its 4 bloodshot eyes locked onto me, and both fawn-filled maws opened at once as green acid surged and gurgled like a fountain in its throats. Perfect timing, I sneered, not even shifting my feet, simply turning my head toward the stunning elf beside me. Harper, give that two-headed ugly thing a taste of color, and remember, don't dirty my floor. As you wish, my exalted lord. Harper's voice turned cool and magnetic, like mountain spring water striking jade. Her eyes, which had once been timid, now glittered with a sharp blue light, without a trace of fear. Her long thighs thrust suddenly, and she slid backward like a light swift, creating distance. At the same time, she raised the longbow in her left hand and smoothly drew the invisible energy string with her right. The surrounding air was sucked dry in an instant. Raging wind element converged crazily at her slender fingertips, instantly condensing into 2 magical arrows that flashed a blinding cyan light. The whole sequence was graceful and lethal, so fluid that even if she went to Texas to get a Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Rifle Association, it would be effortless. Whoosh, whoosh. With 2 sharp sonic booms, 2 streaks of cyan light even left visible afterimages in the air. The two-headed acid wolf hadn't even finished its pouncing motion when 2 wind arrows had already precisely flown into its 2 gaping, blood-filled maws, and with terrifying kinetic force, pierced straight through the back of its skull. Bang, bang, 2 puffs of blood mist exploded in midair, The two-headed acid wolf didn't even manage a single howl before its massive, oxidized body, like a high-speed train stripped of its engine, slid forward a distance from inertia and then crashed with a heavy boom at my feet. Dead through and through. One-shot kill. A completely unsurprising one-shot. Nice work, girl. I let out a loud whistle. I absolutely love this thrill of a dimensionality-reducing strike. The system's alert sounded in my mind at just the right moment. Pleasant as if the slot machines in a Vegas casino had hit the jackpot. Ding. Your subordinate Harper overleveled and killed a black iron grade two-headed acid wolf. The Lord gains 100 experience points. Your level has increased to level 2. Ding. Overlevel kill triggered hidden rewards. Gained 500 evolution points. Gained 200 units of two-headed wolf meat. Gained 1 intact black iron wolf pelt. Gained 1 basic wind attribute magic crystal. I got rich. 500 evolution points. This is like someone handing you a pillow while you doze off. I clapped my hands in satisfaction, turned around, and looked at the burly farmer who had been cowering in the corner, and was now completely petrified. Blake Vargas was frozen in an extremely ridiculous pose, sitting on the ground with his butt, clutching his head with both hands. His rugged face contorted by utter shock, his jaw hanging so low it could probably smash his toes. His gaze flicked between the horrifying wolf corpse on the floor and Harper, who looked like a goddess descended, his brain clearly fried. Hey, buddy. I stepped up to Black, crouched down, reached out, and patted his face, which had gone deathly pale from fright, a mischievous smile playing at the corner of my mouth. Don't stand there with your mouth open. You'll get a fly in it. See, this is how things go when you stick with me. I pointed at Harper, then stared straight into Black's eyes. Now tell me, do you want to be as cool as she is? Like punching a bear to pieces or something? Black's Adam's apple bobbed painfully, and a fire named ambition exploded in his gaze like never before. I do, my lord. I'm willing to be smashed to pieces for you, Black cried. So excited he dropped to his knees and slammed his forehead against the hard, muddy ground with a dull thud. Don't pulverize yourself. I don't want to be left cleaning up a mess. What I want you to do is go and snap the enemy's bones one by one. I stood up, rolled my shoulders, and a gleam of fanatical light flashed in my eyes. 500 evolution points, enough for me to create another monster. Harper had filled out my ranged firepower. Now I needed a super meat shield who could take hits up front and twist off those monsters' heads. I didn't hesitate to pull up the system panel and lock onto Blake. Evolution target. Tier 1 Farmer Blake Vargas. Evolution cost 300 points. Evolution path. Melee heavy armor berserker. Confirm evolution. This time the golden light was more violent and more scorching than Harper's, with a heart-rending roar from Blake. The temperature inside the entire cabin rose sharply. I watched his already tall frame swell wildly in the golden light like a balloon being inflated. In the blink of an eye he broke past the 2-meter mark and finally settled steadily at about 2 meters. The muscles on his body rose up like slabs of hard granite. And even more incredible, a layer upon layer of dark red, dragon scale-like keratin began to appear on the surface of his skin. Roar. When the golden light faded, a roar like a dragon from an ancient wilderness exploded through the cramped cabin, shaking so hard that the last pathetic bits of thatch on the roof fluttered down. Standing before me was no longer the timid peasant holding a rusty pitchfork. This was a real land bulldozer. He stood bare-chested, his body covered in dark red dragon scales. His eyes had become vertical pupils of golden yellow, emitting a chilling, murderous glare. On his back, impossibly, he bore a heavy horse-cleaving blade as wide as a door, flashing with a bloodthirsty red light. My lord, Black Vargas, your dragonblood warrior, is ever ready to tear apart any enemy for you. Black knelt on one knee, his voice like a heavy thunder. I couldn't wait to open his status panel. Name, Black Vargas. Race, Dragonblood half-orc tier. Rank 3 golden potential attack. 400 defense. 350 loyalty. Absolute skills. Boiling blood frenzy, ignite dragon blood to double attack power for a short time. Immune to pain. Dragon scale bastion, activate absolute defense of dragon scales. Can ignore any physical attack below rank 3. Perfect. I snapped my fingers in satisfaction. 400 attack power plus 350 defense. This isn't a warrior. It's practically a humanoid main battle tank. My lord, the door is broken. Shall we repair it? Harper asked softly, his voice still cool and pleasant. I looked at the empty doorframe, then at the wolf blood splattered on the ground, and gave a cold laugh. Repair. Fixing doors is for cowards who only want to eke out a miserable existence in this damned world. The best defense is a good offense. As a former Marine, sit and wait for death was never in my vocabulary. If mutated monsters capable of easily tearing apart rookies are roaming nearby, that means there's definitely a monster encampment close by. Also, I just got 200 units of meat and a primary win attribute magic crystal from killing that wolf. In this Endofworld game where all resources are grabbed by force, monster camps are literal treasure troves, while others hide in shacks and prey. I, Rex Callahan, choose to take the initiative. Blake, Harper, Grab your weapons. I shoved the wind magic crystal into my pocket and strode out of the cabin. Tonight, we're going to pay a visit to the neighbors. We tracked the foul-smelling footprints left by the twin-headed acid wolf and the acid-corroded plants along the way. The night wind carried a metallic tang of blood, but with the top-tier lineups with Xian Huang Dragon Blood Warrior on my left and Yong Qingtseng Elven Archer on my right, I even found this midnight stroll oddly enjoyable. After about 2 kilometers, passing through a sparse grove of dead trees, a monster camp emitting a ghostly green firelight came into view. It was a camp enclosed by a crude wooden fence, containing about 20 or 30 two-headed acid wolves wandering around, and in the center lay an elite wolf lord, a full size larger than the one before. Dozing atop a pile of white bones. My lord, there are quite a few of them. Should I start an initial ranged whittle? Harper knocked her longbow. A cyan wind element was already gathering at her fingertips. No need for that trouble. I looked at the creatures, blissfully unaware that death had already arrived, and patted Blake's thick dragon scale shoulder. Blake, see those beasts? Go, give them a surprise. At your command, my lord. Black grinned widely, revealing a ferocious smile. He flipped around and drew the Dorzai's horse-slaying blade from his back, took a deep breath, then suddenly let out an earth-shattering roar. Blood boil frenzy. Boom. A visibly blood-red shockwave erupted from him. His once dark-red dragon scales instantly glowed as red as a branding iron, and those golden vertical pupils became utterly bloodthirsty and frenzied. For Lord Blake was like a heavy cannon shot fired from a barrel, smashing straight through the camp's already flimsy wooden fence and crashing violently into the pack of wolves. Howl. The wolf pack was jolted awake by the sudden attack, but before they could react, the horse-cleaving saber in Blake's hand had already become a whirl of death. Pshik, pshik, pshik. The terrifying power of 400 attack points doubled made him in the wolf pack feel as easy as slicing butter with a hot knife. The tough hides that the two-headed acid wolves boasted about were like paper before Blake's saber, instantly cut in half. Green acid sprayed onto his dragon scales with a sizzling sound, unable to breach his dragon scale barrier. My god, this is simply a one-sided slaughter. I leaned against a dead tree, leisurely watching this display of violent aesthetics. The elite wolf king finally reacted. It roared in fury, opened its huge mouth spraying potent acid, and bit fiercely at Blake's back. Harper, the big one's yours. Don't let it dirty Blake's blade, I said lightly. Yes. Whoosh. A cyan magic arrow, even more dazzling than before and like a meteor, screamed as it tore through the air and crossed over 100 meters in an instant. The Wolf King didn't even have time to close its mouth before the wind arrow shot straight into its oral cavity, pierced out through the back of its neck, and the tremendous kinetic energy drove its massive body to be slammed onto the totem pole in the center of the camp. Ding! Your subordinate Blake has slain a two-headed acidic wolf and gained 30 experience points. Ding! Your subordinate Harper has slain the elite two-headed acidic wolf king and gained 300 experience points. Lord level has risen to 3. Ding! Congratulations to the Lord for successfully destroying a small monster camp. You have received 1 silver chest, 1,000 units of stone, and 1,000 units of wood. The system notification sounded in my head like the most beautiful symphony in the world. This game is too easy. Clear the battlefield. Pack up anything usable, especially that silver chest, I ordered as I leisurely lit a Marlboro cigarette I had tucked in my pocket before the jump. Taking a deep drag, the spicy smoke spun in my lungs, giving me a strangely pleasing sense of ease amid the wreckage and the acrid tang of blood. Black had snapped out of his berserk state. His dragon scales had returned to a dark red, like a simple, steady farmer. He was grunting as he dragged the corpses of the twin-headed acid wolves together, then expertly began to skin and butcher them. The door-sized cavalry cleaver in his hands was being used like a bone-picking knife, the sight discordant yet oddly efficient. Harper lightly leapt up onto the totem pole, took down the silver chest, and respectfully handed it to me. Nice work. I exhaled a smoke ring and reached out to open the chest. Ding! Silver chest opened. Obtained. 1x territory shield upgrade blueprint basic. 1x tier 2 magic weapon blueprint thunder repeating crossbow. 100 energy crystals. 500 gold coins. I looked at the system prompt and nodded with satisfaction. Energy crystals are the key material for upgrading territory core buildings, and that shield upgrade blueprint came at just the right time. At least it would stop my shabby wooden hut from looking like a paper lantern. Just as we were ransacking the spoils, an extremely brazen, screeching roar of an engine suddenly shattered the night's silence. I followed the sound and saw 3 rugged all-terrain SUVs, welded with heavy steel plates and sharp ram bars, roaring out from the other side of the deadwood forest, kicking up clouds of dust. Several heavy machine guns were mounted on the roofs, and the searchlights swept mercilessly across the entire camp, finally glaring into my face. Bang! The door of the first SUV was kicked open, and a young man in a finely tailored hunting outfit with a slicked-back pompadour swaggered out. He toyed with an ornate silver revolver in his hand. A dozen burly men in full gear followed him, all wearing matching bulletproof vests and carrying assault rifles, clearly professionally trained mercenaries. The young man scanned the camp strewn with wolf carcasses, then looked at Blake and Harper standing beside me. A flash of undisguised greed and envy crossed his eyes before he fixed his gaze on me. "Hey, buddy, not bad. Beat my Ironblood mercenary corps to taking this camp." The young man flicked the revolver in his hand and said in a condescending, patronizing tone, "I'm Warren Davenport. Anyone who knows me knows my father owns 3 city blocks of real estate in New York. In this lousy game, I'm a big shot too. Now, hand over that elven girl behind you and that silver treasure chest. In exchange, I might magnanimously allow you to join my territory as a shit-shoveling laborer. What do you say, pretty sweet deal?" "Right." I looked at this rich second-generation kid who felt utterly pleased with himself, and couldn't help laughing in anger. Valen Davenport. I flicked the last half of my cigarette away. "Listen, kid, I don't care how many blocks your old man owns in New York, and I don't care how many gun-toting trash you recruited in this game. Now, while I'm still not in the worst mood, take your toy guns and get out of my sight." The smile on Valen's face froze instantly, and his expression turned vicious. Ungrateful trash who doesn't know how to take a compliment. He suddenly raised a revolver and pointed it at me. "You think that big guy by your side and that ball-wielding chick can stop a dozen fully automatic rifles? Fire turned that man into a sieve. Leave that elf alive." A dozen or so mercenaries behind him immediately raised their rifles, the black muzzles aimed at us. I don't know what's coming. I didn't even lift an eyelid, just coldly spat out one word: "Blake, roar." There was no need for me to give any specific orders. Blake's massive body erupted like a volcano. He didn't enter berserk mode, relying solely on the terrifying muscular explosiveness of his draconic Halfric blood. He stomped his legs, leaving a deep crater where he stood, like a roaring heavy armored vehicle, charging straight toward those dozen or so mercenaries. Rat-a-tat-a-tat. The dense gunfire instantly tore through the night. Bullets poured down on Blake like a torrential rain. However, a scene that plunged Valen and his men into despair unfolded. The rifle rounds that could tear a human body apart struck Blake's dark red dragon scales and only set off a series of dazzling sparks, clinking and chiming, not even leaving a white mark. The dragon scale barrier that ignores physical attacks below 3rd rank was absolute defense against these ordinary gunpowder weapons. What? What the hell is that thing? Valen screamed in horror, frantically pulling the trigger of his revolver. But it was useless. Pfft. Black had already plunged into the crowd. He didn't even bother to draw his saber. With a single heavy horizontal sweep, his thick arm like a battering ram smashed 3 mercenaries and their guns away, amid the dull crunch of breaking sternums. The 3 fell like sacks of rags several dozen feet away, dead on the spot. In just a few seconds, more than a dozen well-trained mercenaries were swatted by Black like flies, smashed into a heap of broken bodies. The entire venue was deathly silent, leaving only the deep rumble of the SUV's engine. Valen Davenport collapsed beside the SUV, a large wet patch spreading across his crotch. He trembled like a sieve, and when he saw Blake's huge, bloodied hand reaching for him, he let out a shriek like a slaughtered pig. Don't kill me. I have money. I have resources. I can give you all my territory. I'm not interested in your worthless territory." I walked slowly up to him and looked down on him from above. "I told you to get out." Yes. "I'll get out right now." Valen scrambled and crawled, trying to clamber into the SUV. Just then, a faint knocking sound came from the trunk of his SUV. "Wait." I signaled Blake to stop him, then walked to the trunk and yanked the lid open. A girl was curled up inside. She wore a tattered coarse cloth dress, was covered in wounds, and her filthy face was written all over with terror. Seeing me open the lid, she instinctively recoiled. Like a frightened fawn, system panel popped up in time. Name: Selena Monroe. Identity: exiled refugee, ownerless peasant. Condition: severely weak, infected with unknown toxin. She is a refugee I grabbed from an abandoned camp. Valen stammered beside me. She was poisoned, nearly dying. I was planning to use her as bait for the wilds. I turned my head, looked at Valen's nauseating face, and my expression went completely cold. "Harper, present." "My lord." "Cripple both of that waste's legs and leave him to fend for himself in this deadwood forest." Accompanied by a slaughterhouse-like scream from Valen and 2 streaks of bluish arrow light, I bent down and reached out my hand to the girl in the carriage. "It's all right, Selena." I looked into her eyes full of despair and said softly, "I'm Rex Callahan. From now on, you're mine." Selena grasped my hand tightly. Her fingers were cold and slightly trembling. It wasn't until she crawled out of the trunk that I noticed a blackened wound on her right calf, the surrounding skin already rotten and giving off a nauseating stench. "Thank you, my lord," she gasped weakly, on the verge of fainting. "Blake, find a car that still runs and load up the spoils. Harper, support her." I issued the orders quickly. We didn't stay long at the camp. Driving the captured SUV, we used the cover of night to hurry back to that ramshackle wooden cabin. Although it was still dilapidated, it was now my territory, my stronghold. after settling Selina on the straw-strewn floor in the corner of the cabin. I checked her condition. The poison was spreading fast. Her breasts were growing weaker, and her forehead was burning like a furnace. My lord, she's in bad shape. I can feel her life force draining away, Harper said, frowning. Elves are extremely sensitive to the presence of life. Ordinary herbs won't die. His is a rare monster toxin. I stared at Selina's pale face, calculating in my mind. I still had 200 evolution points in hand. The ones I had accumulated after destroying the monster camp and killing the SUV mercenaries. Harper is a top-tier physical damage dealer. Blake is an invincible heavy tank. But my current team is missing a crucial Rolia support who can heal and provide magical assistance. It seems I have no choice but to use that method. I took a deep breath, opened the system panel, and fixed my gaze on Selina. System. Target. Selina Monroe. Consume 200 evolution points. Evolution path. Magic healing cleric. Confirm evolution. This time, it wasn't a raging, scorching golden light, but a gentle, holy silver glow like moonlight that instantly enveloped Selina. The dilapidated wooden hut seemed cleansed by the light. Even the mildew that had hung in the air was replaced by a faint scent of violet. In the silver light, the black, festering wound on Selina's leg healed at a visible speed. The black poisoned blood being forcibly expelled from her body and dissipating into a wisp of black smoke. Her once sturdy, coarse linen dress, under the interweaving light, transformed into a moon-white high priestess robe patterned with dark starry motifs. Her tangled gray hair became silky silver, and above her head appeared an illusory crown formed from pure moonlight. As the silver light receded, Selina slowly opened her eyes. They were deep navy blue eyes, as profound as the night sky, filled with divinity and compassion. In her hand she held a mithril staff set with a massive sapphire. So holy it was awe-inspiring. Name: Selina Monroe. Race: Human. Moon God's vassal tier. Rank 3 Golden Tier. Potential attack: 150 magic power, 400 defense, 80 loyalty. Fanatical skills: Moon God's healing channels moonlight energy to instantly heal all non-lethal wounds and remove negative statuses of allies within range. Starfall summons the power of stars to deliver a large area devastating magical strike to a targeted zone. I looked at her panel, my heart finally at peace. Perfect healing, combined with terrifying AoE magic damage. My golden triangle lineup had finally come together completely. Selina Monroe. Offer the purest faith to the great creator. Selina knelt elegantly on one knee before me, her voice ethereal and devout. Thank you for pulling me back from the endless abyss and granting me the honor of serving you. Stand up, Selina. In my domain, there's no need for so many formalities. I reached out to help her up and said with a smile, how do you feel now? Stronger than ever, my lord. Selina tightened her grip on the staff. I can feel the moonlight dancing at my fingertips with joy. Very good. I nodded in satisfaction. Over the next few days, we used the seized off-road vehicle as transport, and, with Blake as an invincible path clearer and Harper as a precise sniper, we frantically swept up all the low-level monster camps within 10 kilometers of the cabin. Selina provided flawless healing from the rear and occasionally an earth-shattering starfall magical strike. A vast amount of resources, chests, and evolution points flowed into my hands like a river. Using wood, stone, and that basic protective shield upgrade blueprint, I turned the drafty broken cabin into a sturdy stone fortress. Its exterior further shrouded by a layer of faintly blue glowing energy shielding. What excites me most is that I've accumulated a full 2,000 evolution points. On the evening of the 7th day, as the last glow of sunset vanished below the horizon, that cold, mechanical system prompt exploded once more into the minds of every lord across the globe. Warning: the 7-day novice protection period has ended. The first wave of the global monster onslaught, the endless corpse tide, will arrive in 10 minutes. Survive or perish. Rookies, pray to your gods. The system's voice had barely finished when the world channel exploded. Help. My territory is surrounded by zombies. There's so many you can't even count. We're doomed. I only just recruited 5 spearmen. How can that stop thousands of monsters? Is there any powerful player who can save me? I'll pay any price. Wails and cries for help were flooding the region channel. This wasn't a game, this was clearly a one-sided massacre. My lord. The air outside is filled with a nauseating stench of death. Harper stood on the lookout tower of the stone keep, brow furrowed. I lit a cigarette, strolled leisurely up onto the fortress wall, and watched the dark line on the distant horizon slowly writhing like a tide of black. It was thousands upon thousands of mutated stitched monstrosities, and foul-smelling ghouls, like a plague of locusts. They were pouring madly toward my territory. Nervous, boys. I exhaled a plume of blue smoke and asked the 3 behind me with a smile. My great sword is starved for blood. Blake pounded his chest wildly, the dark red dragon's scales faintly glinting in the night. All evil will be purified under the moonlight. Selina raised her staff high, and a soft moonlight began to gather around her. My arrow will never miss. Harper drew her longbow, and cyan wind elements surged violently. Good. I flicked the cigarette but toward the endless darkness beneath the city wall. since the system wants to play big. We'll play along, tonight. Let these reckless heaps of rotten flesh learn what true despair is. Kill. Night had fallen low, and a putrid cold wind mixed with low, guttural roars echoed over the continent of Italia. The black, pressing tide of corpses resembled a dam bursting torrent of darkness, mercilessly crushing across the wasteland and bearing straight toward my stone fortress. At the very front surged thousands upon thousands of slow-moving yet astonishingly numerous ordinary zombies. Their clothes were in tatters, rotting flesh hung from their skeletons, black pus flowed, and their gray-white eyes held only an utter craving for blood, prepared to welcome our guests. I stood on the battlements, hands braced on the cold stone merlons, like a conductor savoring a symphony. Swoosh, 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 before the zombie horde reached the shield. Harper struck first. She didn't even use the wind arrow skill, relying solely on an insanely fast rate of fire. She loosed volley after volley of ordinary wooden arrows. With the elf's terrifying dynamic vision and accuracy, each arrow seemed to have grown eyes, piercing perfectly through the zombies' rotted eye sockets and into their brains. Like harvesting wheat, the zombies in the vanguard fell in swathes, but there were simply too many of them. Monsters from the rear trampled over their comrades' bodies and kept surging forward crazily. Soon, more than a dozen massive stitched creatures' bodies cobbled together from countless scraps of flesh and bone waved rusted iron hooks and slammed heavily against the fortress's outer pale blue energy shield. The shield emitted a violent ripple, and the system alarm sounded in my ears. Warning. Shield energy has dropped to 80%. Blake, it's your turn. Show these puzzle toys some color. I shouted. Roar. Blake let out a deafening roar and leapt from the 7-meter-high wall. Boiling blood frenzy activated instantly. His massive body, like a burning dark red meteor, slammed into the center of the stitched monsters outside the shield. Boom! The raging impact shattered 3 stitched monsters outright, limbs and fragments flying everywhere. Wielding that door's-eyes cleaver, Blake tore through the tide of corpses, whipping up a crimson whirlwind of death. He didn't need to defend at all. The fetid claws of those zombies and the iron hooks of the stitched monstrosities struck his reddened dragon scales and couldn't even leave a mark. And every time he swung his blade, he could cleave a dozen creatures in half at the waist. Too brutal. I like it. I whistled, my gaze turning toward the distance. Behind the tide of corpses, several hundred nimble ghouls appeared, along with a few massive, truck-sized toxic zombie lords covered in pustules. They were attempting to bypass Blake and attack the fortress's shield from the flank. Selena, let them taste the wrath of the moon goddess. I gave the order. As you wish, Creator. Selena raised a mithril staff set with a massive sapphire, holy light shimmering in her deep blue eyes. She chanted an ancient, obscure incantation, and the surrounding air suddenly grew cold. Starfall. In the sky, the moon, once veiled by dark clouds, burst forth with blinding light. Immediately afterward, hundreds of magical meteors burning with silver-white flames, carrying cataclysmic force, rained down like a meteor shower, striking hard at the area where the ghouls and the poisonous zombie lords stood. Rumble. The ground trembled. Soil flying. Silver-white magical flames instantly engulfed everything within several hundred meters. Those proud, highly poisonous zombie lords couldn't withstand the terrifying magic strike called Starfall for even a second and were reduced to ashes. Ding. Your subordinate Blake killed a Stitcher, gained 50 experience points. Ding. Your subordinate Harper killed a common zombie, gained 10 experience points. Ding. Your subordinate Serena killed a poisonous zombie lord, gained 500 experience points. System notification sounds cascaded like a waterfall before my eyes as my lord level rocketed at a visibly rapid pace. Level 4, 5, 6. This monster onslaught that drove over 90% of lords worldwide to despairing wails had, before my golden trio, turned into a one-sided slaughter show, a frantic revel of harvesting experience and resources. But in the World Channel, the situation was completely different. Help! My shield broke. They're pouring in. All my spearmen are dead. Someone save me. Regional notice. Territory no. 4478 destroyed. Lord deceased. Regional notice. Territory no. 9527 destroyed. Lord deceased. Each crimson death notice rang like a funeral bell in the hearts of every survivor. I don't know how long had passed, but when the eastern horizon showed the first hint of dawn, the nightmare-like monster onslaught finally came to an end. Outside the fortress, corpses piled like mountains, black pus blood gathered into foul-smelling streams. Yet Blake, Harper, and Selena stood unharmed in the morning light. Blake's dragon scales had been made even more vivid by the blood that washed over them. Harper hadn't even broken his breathing, and Selena's spotless moon-white high priestess robes bore not a single stain. Ding! Congratulations to Lord Rex Callahan for successfully repelling the first wave of the monster onslaught. Ding! Calculating battle results. Lord's battle loss, 0. Kill count, 23. 450. Rating, SSS perfect. Ding! Server-wide announcement. Congratulations to Rex Callahan for becoming the world's first lord to survive the monster onslaught with an SSS rating. Rewards granted. 1 legendary territory core upgrade blueprint, 1 random diamond chest, and 10,000 reputation points. The moment the server-wide announcement sounded, the once lifeless world channel instantly exploded. Is this system bugged? SSS rating. He killed over 20,000 monsters by himself. Is he even human? We're still fighting zombies with wooden clubs. Is this guy Rex mowing the lawn with an M1A2 main battle tank? Boss needs a leg accessory. I can do anything. I casually turned off the noisy world channel. Humans are like that. When someone gains a small advantage, they grow jealous. But when the gap becomes a chasm, all that's left is worship and pleading. I blew out a smoke ring and returned my attention to the legendary territory core upgrade blueprint emitting prismatic light, and to the heavy diamond chest. Ding. Open the diamond chest. Gained 1 territory building blueprint heroic altar, 100,000 units of refined timber, 100,000 units of granite, 10,000 gold coins. I'm rich. The massive basic resources dropped from fending off the zombie horde. And I'm definitely one of the biggest fat cats on this continent now. But when I tried to use that legendary core upgrade blueprint directly, the system popped up a warning. Warning. To upgrade a legendary territory core, in addition to consuming 100,000 units of basic resources, the key material Heart of the Black Abyss Tree Demon is required. This material exists in the depths of the Blackwood Forest, 50 kilometers north of the territory. Lord, please proceed with caution. The danger level in that area is lethal. Heart of the Black Abyss Tree Demon. I raised an eyebrow. Looks like our celebration party will have to be postponed. Folks. I turned to look at the trio who had just survived a night of slaughter yet seemed as relaxed as if they'd taken a stroll in the backyard. Blake. Fill up the SUV. Harper. Selena. Grab the supplies. We're taking a drive to that place up north called Blackwood Forest. If we're going to be kings in this damned world, our fortress has to be the strongest in the entire universe. At your command, my creator. Selena bowed slightly. Blake grinned, rubbed the blood-archened horsecutter blade on the ground, and strode toward the SUV. Half an hour later, the off-roader, modified to look like an iron beast, tore across the wasteland. The 50-kilometer trip, after crushing dozens of careless stragglers along the way, brought us to our destination without incident. The Blackwood Forest lives up to its name. The trees here soar into the clouds, their trunks a disquieting jet black. The dense canopy blots out the sky, keeping sunlight completely at bay. Even though it's daytime, the forest is as dim as a morgue, and the air is thick with the musty scent of rotting leaves and damp earth. Lord, the aura here makes me uneasy. It's full of twisted, corrupt magic. Selena gripped her staff, her deep blue eyes scanning the surroundings warily. Relax, sweetheart. I racked the pump of the Remington shotgun I'd just redeemed with coins from the system shop, producing a crisp click. As long as there's a health bar, even gods will kill them for you. We'd gone less than 2 kilometers into the forest when a rustling sound came from the canopy all around us. Something's approaching. Fast. About 30 of them. They're fourth-tier monsters, shadow huntsmen. Harper's elfin eyes instantly locked onto the targets in the dark. My lord. They're highly venomous and can go invisible in the shadows. Invisible. Nothing stays hidden in my book. I sneered. Selena. Light up this forest. Holy light. Selena waved her staff lightly, and a blinding, sun-like radiance exploded in midair, instantly illuminating the surrounding forest for hundreds of meters as bright as day. The moment the light flared, the shadow huntsmen that had been hiding in the tree shadows were exposed with nowhere to hide. Their bodies were the size of small cars, covered in black barbs, their 8 compound eyes clamped shut in pain under the glare. And they emitted a piercing hiss. They're blind now. I patted Black's shoulder. Go on. Kid, trim them like you would the lawn. Black cackled as he activated his boiling blood frenzy and, like an out-of-control rhinoceros, charged into the spider swarm. The heavy Mameluke sword felt weightless in his hands. With every swing he cleaved a shadow huntress and the black trunk beneath it in two. Green, fetid ichor splattered everywhere. The spiders that tried to retaliate with toxic webs were nailed to the trunks by Harper's lightning-fast wind arrows before they could spit. In a matter of minutes, 30 fourth-tier monsters that would have sent other lords running in terror lay as butchered scraps on the ground. Boring. Blake licked the blood at the corner of his mouth, clearly not satisfied with the kill. Don't rush. Big guy, the main course is up ahead. I pointed toward the heart of the forest. As we pushed on, the trees around us grew ever sparser, while the warped magic in the air thickened to the point it felt like it might congeal into droplets. At last we came to a vast clearing. In the center sprawled a colossal being. A 50-meter dead tree with a twisted human face on its trunk. Countless thick, python-like roots writhing through the soil. Surrounding it stood hundreds of berserk trants over 5 meters tall as guards. Target: Black Abyss Tree Demon 5th-tier boss status. Sleeping. Extremely dangerous. This is our heart donor. I tossed the half-smoked cigar to the ground and crushed it with my combat boot. Listen up. Selena, use Starfall to clear those annoying little trants first. Blake, your job is to cut off those writhing roots. Don't let them touch me or Selena. Harper, aim at that ugly face on its trunk and blind its eyes for me. The three of them nodded in unison. This forbidden place that had filled everyone with dread would meet its end today. Let's get to work, guys. Selena's chant rose quietly through the stifling air, like an ancient and tragic requiem, as her mithril staff was raised high. The black canopy that had once blotted out the sky was suddenly rent apart by an irresistible holy force. Starfall. Brilliant silver-white light cascaded like a waterfall. Immediately afterward, hundreds of magic meteors burning with silver flames appeared in the sky. These doom-laden stars trailed long tails of fire and, with overwhelming force, smashed down onto that clearing. Rumble. The endless explosions were deafening, and the ground trembled violently. The more than 100 berserk trants over 5 meters tall were swallowed in an instant by that terrifying stellar heat. Not even able to utter a single scream, scorching silver flames spread wildly through the damp blackwood forest, cracking the iron-hard black trunks as they burned, and the air filled with a pungent, charred scent of vegetation. At the very center of the inferno, an extremely deep roar, as if from the depths of hell, suddenly detonated. The 50-meter black abyss tree demon had fully awakened. The twisted human-like face on its trunk contorted into an expression of terrible pain and rage. And the countless large roots that had been buried underground writhed forth like black pythons breaking the soil, exuding a nauseating stench of rot as they furiously lashed the surrounding ground, smashing the burning stumps to splinters. The pressure of a fifth-tier boss leader was like a tangible gale, blowing so fierce we could barely keep our eyes open. Now, Blake, go cut off its legs, I shouted over the gale. Roar. The golden vertical pupils in Blake's eyes were instantly replaced by bloodthirsty crimson. He hesitated not at all and activated boiling blood frenzy, charging like a heavy war machine at full throttle toward the giant, wildly thrashing roots. Bang! A root as thick as a water jar swept across with tremendous force and struck Blake's chest hard. Even with the dragon scale barrier that ignores physical attacks below Tier 3, facing the vengeful blow of a Tier 5 boss, Blake was still slammed backward by that terrifying power for over 10 meters, his feet carving 2 deep trenches into the mud. But he did not fall. Blake wiped the blood leaking from the corner of his mouth, let out a thunderous, manic roar, and his cavalry cleaver became a dazzling blood-red arc that struck viciously at the root trying to retract. With a crisp crack, like slicing through a massive head of lettuce, the black tree root was cleanly severed, and thick green sap gushed out like a fountain. Nicely done, Harper. Perform an ocular operation on this big guy. I raised the Remington shotgun in my hand, watching the battle coldly. Understood. Harper lightly leapt onto a huge rock. Her deep elven eyes were locked onto the 2 hollow, giant eyes on the twisted, huge face of the black abyss tree demon. Furious wind elementals swirled wildly around her longbow, and 2 teal wind arrows, thicker than ever before, produced a screeching sonic boom. Swoosh, swoosh. The arrows turned into 2 streaks of light, slicing precisely through the gaps between the waving tree roots and driving straight into the trent's eyes. Roar. The black abyss trant emitted an excruciating, heart-wrenching scream as its massive body convulsed violently. It was completely blind. Driven mad? It opened the gaping maw on its trunk like an abyss, and a thick, dark green poisonous mist erupted like a volcanic blast, instantly enveloping an area hundreds of meters across. This is bad, it's a high-grade neurotoxin. Harper clamped a hand over his mouth and nose. Brow furrowed. Even the hulking Blake, upon contact with the mist, slowed. The dark red dragon scales on his body began to sizzle as they were corroded. Moon God's healing. Selena's cool voice rang out just in time. A circle of soft silver light spread instantly from her, enveloping the 4 of us. Wherever the silver glow touched the poisonous mist, it vanished like snow under a raging sun, melted away without a trace. The corrosive marks on Blake's body were restored in the blink of an eye. Now, at the moment the tree demon spewed its poison frantically, I keenly noticed its chest heaving violently in pain. Directly beneath its twisted, enormous face was a hidden fissure, and deep within that crack pulsed a heart emitting a strong green light. But that spot was over 30 meters above the ground. Blake couldn't reach it. And although Harper's arrows were precise, the tearing effect of the wind element might not be enough to completely shatter a 5th-rank boss's hard armor. I have to go myself. I gritted my teeth and quickly pulled up the system panel on my retina. I had been hoarding evolution points all this time without daring to use them on missile. Now was the time to let these bumpkins see the ultimate form of modern firepower. System. Target. Remington shotgun. Consume 500 evolution points. Evolution path. Mechanical destructive penetration. A searing beam of golden light erupted from my hand. The once ordinary steel shotgun rapidly reassembled and transformed within the light. The stock and barrel were sheathed in a mysterious blackened metal. The barrel grew thicker and longer, its surface engraved with dense magical runes. Weapon. Dragon Breath Destroyer 4th-tier Magitech property. Ignores defense and penetration. Fires explosive shells formed from compressed pure fire element, dealing triple true damage to plant type and undead monsters. Feel the hospitality of a Texan vet. You damned rotten piece of wood. I lifted the shotgun and slammed the trigger. Boom. There was no crisp gunshot, only a terrifying roar like a dragon's bellow. A blinding fireball the size of a water jar, carrying earth-shattering kinetic force, spewed wildly from the muzzle. The powerful recoil made my arms go numb, and I staggered back 2 steps. The fireball traced a deathly red line through the air, unfailingly following the crack in the black abyss tree demon's chest, and slammed hard into its heart. Bang! A dull explosion rang out inside the tree demon. The next moment, searing magma gushed from the fissures in its trunk. The black abyss tree demon's massive 50-meter body went rigid. Then, like a collapsing skyscraper, it crashed to the ground with a deafening roar, reduced to a heap of blazing, charred wood. Ding! Congratulations, Lord, you have down-leveled and killed a rank 5 boss. Black abyss tree demon, earning 10,000 experience points. Lord level increased to 8. Ding! Hidden reward triggered. Gained 2,000 evolution points. Gained legendary material. Black abyss tree demon's heart. Ding! Obtained 1 diamond chest. Gained 100,000 units of high-grade timber. The system's pleasant chime sounded like a heavenly melody. I stepped forward and picked up the huge heart from a pile of coke. It was still faintly pulsing, jade-like and crystalline, and a satisfied, cold smile curled at the corner of my mouth. Shift's over, boys. Time to go home and upgrade our throne. Half an hour later, the SUV sped all the way back, carrying us and our haul to the stone fortress. Without any hesitation, I strode to the center of the territory where the core crystal emitted a faint blue light, and placed the legendary upgrade schematic and the black abyss tree demon's heart on it at the same time. Confirm upgrade of territory core. VRR. This time the commotion was more violent than any prior evolution. The black abyss tree demon's heart instantly transformed into an immense surge of green life energy, merging with the rainbow light on the schematic and violently pumping into the ground. The earth began to tremble violently. Our stone fortress, which had originally covered only a few hundred square meters, seemed to be injected with life at that moment. The hard granite walls began to automatically rise and thicken, complex magic circuit patterns appearing on their surfaces. The towering watchtowers reshaped into magic towers that radiated elemental light. Even more shocking, the territory's area was frantically expanding outward, swallowing the surrounding wilderness into that layer of absolute defensive shield that had already turned dark golden. A full 10 minutes later, the earthquake stopped and the light faded. What stood before us was no longer the crude shelter, but an epic war fortress soaring into the clouds, exuding an aura of majesty and sanctity. Ding! Territory upgrade complete. Congratulations, Lord. Your territory has been promoted to the server's one and only legendary stronghold, the Eternal Royal City. Lofty, magnificent, arrogant beyond compare. This was my first impression of the Eternal Royal City. The rough granite walls that had originally stood a dozen meters high had now been exaggerated to 30 meters, entirely constructed from a kind of obsidian that emitted a dim sheen. The surface of the walls flowed with densely packed magical defensive sigils like quicksilver. 4 elemental magic towers 50 meters tall rose at the city's 4 high points, their elemental crystals at the tops like 4 dazzling stars, continuously supplying energy to the dark golden absolute defensive shield that enveloped the entire city. I brought up the territory panel. Row after row of splendid figures could make other lords still worrying over wooden palisades green with envy to the point of a heart attack. Territory. Eternal Royal City server-wide unique legendary durability. 1. 000. 0001. 000. 000 shield regenerates 1 per second. Exclusive territory buffs. 1. Sovereign domain. All allied units within the Royal City's range receive a 30 increase to all attributes. 2. Bountiful soil. Natural gathering speed of base resources wood, stone, iron or within the territory is increased tenfold. 3. Absolute suppression. Any hostile unit entering within 10 kilometers of the territory has its movement speed reduced by 20. This damn well is a real safe house. I bit off a cigar and let Harper, ever perceptive, spark a little flame at my fingertips to light it for me. I inhaled deeply. The spicy tobacco mixed with the thrill of victory, sending a shiver through every cell in my body. Blake, clear out the square. Selena, take all the energy crystals we retrieved from that silver chest at the camp and fill the magic tower's energy slot with them. As I gave orders, I pulled the previously obtained item from my inventory. Territory building blueprint. Heroic altar. 100,000 units of refined timber and granite were deducted instantly, with a tremor like mountains collapsing. A magnificent altar rose from the center of the royal city's vast plaza 10 meters tall, woven from pure white marble and deep obsidian. At its center burned a ghostly blue soul fire, exuding an ancient and mysterious aura. Ding! The heroic spirit altar has been completed. The Lord may, by sacrificing high-grade materials and evolution points, summon epic-tier hero units or awaken the divinity of existing subordinates. Nice. I immediately turned my gaze to the diamond chest that had dropped from the black abyss tree demon I had just killed. Rubbing my hands together, I didn't hesitate and chose to open it. Ding! Opened a diamond chest and obtained 3 blueprints for the Tier 4 alchemical weapon Mana Crystal Cannon, the Shadow-type legendary material Abyssal Stalker's Fang, and 1,000 evolution points. Another 1,000 evolution points, together with the 2,000 points from the Tree Demon hidden reward. I now hold a full 3,000 evolution points. I am practically swimming in wealth. My gaze locked onto that ink-black, bone-chilling Abyssal Stalker's Fang. In my team is Blake, the invincible heavy trooper, Harper, the over-the-horizon sniper, and Selena, the AoE spell queen and ultimate healer. If anything is missing, it's a top-tier assassin who can infiltrate behind enemy lines, kill in one strike, and serve as the eyes of the royal city. System. Use Fawn of the Abyss Stalker as the medium. Expend 2,000 evolution points. And perform a servant summon. Alignment. Shadow Assassin Scout. I did not hesitate to toss the Fang into the pale blue soulfire at the center of the altar. Boom. The blue flame instantly turned into an all-consuming pitch black. The light across the entire royal plaza seemed drained by that black fire. Even the noon sun could not pierce this absolute darkness. Within the dark there was none of the dazzle of Harper's rebirth, none of the ferocity of Black's berserk, and none of the holiness of Selena's descent. There was only an extreme, hair-raising deathly silence. Click, click. The crisp sound of high heels hitting the floor came from within the black flames. The fire parted like a curtain to the sides, and a tall, graceful figure slipped out without a sound. She wore a skin-tight black leather suit that clung to her hot curves, and her short, sharp hair was a dark purple. A half-black and gold mask adorned her face, revealing only a pair of cold, heterochromatic eyes like frosty stars. Her left eye blood red, the right a deep violet, clutched in reverse in her hands. 2 matte black daggers, void of any reflection, glinted like fangs. Night elf, nightingale. May I become the blade in your shadow, my most exalted mistress. Her voice was hoarse and sensual, like a blade wrapped in velvet. She did not kneel. Instead her figure flickered, appearing in the shadow behind me as if by teleportation, dropping to one knee as though she had always been part of my own shadow. Name, race, Night Elf Shadow Dancer rank, Tier 4 legendary potential attack, 750 damage doubled when backstabbing agility, 1000 defense, 50 loyalty, fanatical skills, shadow stealth perfectly merges with any shadow, completely immune to physical detection and magical perception below Tier 5. Death Strangle locks onto a target's weakness when their HP falls below 30, triggers an absolute instant kill, 1000 agility points, 750 attack. I stared at this perverse stat sheet, the corners of my mouth twisting into a manic grin. This was no assassin, this was a reaper walking the edge of physical law. Welcome to Callahan's Madman, Nightingale. I exhaled a smoke ring without turning my head, just as I was about to throw a welcome party for the new members. A shrill all-server regional alarm suddenly began blaring furiously inside everyone's minds. Warning, the Regional Overlord Contest Phase 1 has begun. Territory coordinates have been stripped of the war fog. All lords may attack one another, plundering each other's territory cores and resources. The brutal elimination round has officially begun. Survive, or become someone else's stepping stone. As the alarm faded, the nightingale that had been hiding in my shadow finally spoke, its voice tinged with cold bloodlust. Master, there are mice approaching. Many of them. Very many. Oh, I raised an eyebrow. How far? 15 kilometers away, due south. A coalition force made up of humans is moving full speed toward the royal city. Conservatively estimated, their numbers exceed 30,000. And they brought many trebuchets and heavy crossbows. On their banners is painted a golden vulture. A golden vulture. In an instant my mind flashed to that rich second-generation brat I had ordered to have his legs broken and be tossed into the deadwood to be fed to monsters last night, Valen Davenport. Before he died he had ranted that his father was some New York real estate tycoon who commanded a powerful force called the Ironblood Mercenary Corps. It seems attacking the small fry drew the attention of the big ones. After discovering that I not only survived the corpse tide but also captured the server's only legendary territory, those greedy hyenas couldn't hold back. They rallied the entire region's Lord's Alliance, clearly intending to take my prize. 30,000. Blake hefted his glaive, golden vertical pupils full of disdain. My lord, that's not even enough to warm me up. Don't underestimate them, Blake. Even ants can kill an elephant if there are enough of them, Selena reminded softly. But her hand gripping the staff betrayed the fierce fighting spirit she felt in that moment. I burst out laughing and crushed the finished cigar against the obsidian battlement. Selena is right. There are indeed a lot of ants. I turned around, looking at the 4 top-tier monsters under my command capable of sweeping the continent. A madness the likes of which I had never felt igniting in my eyes. So, I'm going to build some cannons. I opened the system panel and slapped the 3 mana crystal cannon blueprints I had just obtained onto the control hub on the city wall. Blake, go loosen up in front of the gate. Harper, take a sniper position in the magic tower. Nightingale, find out where their commander is. As for Selena, I looked at this moon god ward and split my face into a cruel smile. Ready your starfall. Today, I'm going to make these death-defying fools understand that before my domain, numbers are nothing more than a meaningless joke. On the horizon, 30,000 allied troops advanced like a dense black plague of locusts, sweeping up rolling clouds of dust. Hundreds of heavy trebuchets and giant ballistae creaked dully in the ranks. And golden double-head vulture banners snapped in the wind. At the center of the war wagon, a middle-aged man clad in pure gold armor bore a sullen, grim expression. He was none other than Valen's father, New York real estate tycoon, and now leader of the Iron Blood Covenant. Arthur Davenport, Rex Callahan, come out and die. Arthur bellowed through his amplification magic device, his voice shaking the wasteland. You crippled my only son and seized my resources. Today I will use your blood to mourn my boy's ruined life. Be sensible and surrender your capital willingly. I might even grant you a merciful death. I stood atop the towering obsidian ramparts, looking down on that self-righteous rabble with a contemptuous sneer at the corner of my mouth. Arthur, you talk too much. I exhaled a smoke ring, and with my right hand I lightly snapped my middle finger. Fire. Boom, boom, boom. On the city wall, the three newly constructed magical energy crystal cannons, their surfaces coursing with pale blue runes, erupted with earth-shattering roars. Three devastating blue beams several meters in diameter, carrying raging elemental storms, like the breath of death, tore through the night in an instant. Where the beams passed, space itself warped faintly. Those proud heavy catapults and elite shield guards turned to vapor before the magics. As if made of paper, the ground was sliced into three charred gullies, and with a single volley, the enemy's 3,000 vanguard at the front line were completely annihilated. What kind of weapon is this? Scatter, hurry, Arthur screamed in terror. He finally realized what kind of monster he was facing, but it was already too late. The storm descends. A kilometer away, atop the towering magic tower, Harper's beautiful eyes narrowed as she drew her longbow to full. Countless cyan wind arrows became a meteor shower, precisely piercing through the throats of the enemy officers. Meanwhile, in the shadow behind Arthur, the void rippled slightly. For the master, a hoarse, seductive voice sounded in his ear. Nightingale's perfect figure emerged from the shadows like a phantom. Two jet-black daggers carving two cold arcs through the air. Death strangle triggered instantly. Arthur didn't even have time to scream. This arrogant billionaire and regional overlord's head was sent flying, warm blood spraying onto the golden vulture banner. The leader's dead. The leader was instantly killed. Monsters. They're monsters. Run. The command system collapsed instantly. 30,000 troops began frantically slaughtering each other and routing. Black. Selena. See them off on their final journey. I coldly issued the last judgment. Roar. Black plunged from the city wall like a meteor, whipping up a crimson storm of blood through the enemy ranks. Selena's holy chant echoed through the night sky as 100 magical meteors burning with silver flames roared down again, turning the entire wasteland completely into a purified sea of fire. The slaughter lasted only 10 minutes. When the last wisp of dust cleared, only deathly silence remained on the charred earth. 30,000 allied troops, utterly annihilated. Ding. You have successfully defeated the regional allied forces. Slain 127 lords. Received 500,000 gold. Received 10 million units of basic resources. Ding. Server-wide announcement. Lord Rex Callahan achieved the 10,000 slays and regional overlord achievements. Reputation has reached the maximum. Crowned as the supreme eternal god king of the Italia continent. The setting sun dyed the towering eternal royal city a sacred golden red. I sat on the city wall, watching the four top subordinates beside me with reverent expressions and sworn to follow me to death. And I took one last deep drag of my Marlboro. This cruel doomsday game is hell for the weak. But for me, Rex Callahan, this is only the starting point of my conquest of the myriad heavens and worlds. Let's go, boys. I tossed away the cigarette butt and turned to walk toward the supreme throne that belonged to me. Our journey has only just begun. And that's a wrap, folks. If this story gave you that sweet dopamine hit and was more satisfying than peeling the plastic off a brand new TV, do me a massive favor. Obliterate that like button and hit subscribe. I'm locked in the content mine serving up fresh, ridiculously satisfying stories every single day. See you tomorrow for your next fix.